Hi guys, welcome to this episode of I Wanna Eat. Today we're going to be making one of my favorites, a pan-seared ribeye steak. I'm going to show you guys step by step how to create a juicy, tender, and flavorful steak, and also go over a super simple and foolproof way to dry age meat at home without any fancy equipment. We're going to be using something called a Pichitto Sheet. This is a Japanese product that absorbs excess moisture from meat and seafood without draining the umami. By wrapping the steak in the sheet, we create an effect nearly identical to dry aging the meat without any hassle of having to hang it or risk of it going bad. We kept this steak in the fridge wrapped with the Pichito Sheet for 2 days, and it dried very nicely and has no bad smell whatsoever. Take the steak out of the fridge and let it sit at room temperature for about an hour. This will allow the steak to cook more evenly. So now let's take the Pichito Sheet off and see the results. If you're curious and want to try the Pichito Sheet out, we'll put a link in the description. So here you can see our steak has dried out quite a bit, but because it wasn't actually exposed to the open air, there's no smell or funk like you'd get if you had hung it up. Season the steak very generously on both sides with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and thyme. Then put a bit of oil on top and massage the seasonings into the meat. Now preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, about 200 degrees Celsius. Then heat a cast iron skillet over medium-high heat until it's hot. I have some beef fat here from when I was butchering the ribeye, which I'll toss into the pan and let melt a bit. Move the beef fat around the pan a little bit to coat it with oil. You want the skillet to be hot enough so that when you add the steak, it will sizzle. Once the pan is hot, carefully place the steak into the skillet. You should hear a sizzling sound as soon as the steak hits the pan. Let the steak cook for 3 or 4 minutes on one side without touching it. This will allow a nice crust to form on the steak. Once you have a crust, flip the steak over and cook another 3 or 4 minutes on the other side. After about 4 minutes, be sure to sear the edges of the steak, that way we have a nice crust all the way around. Once the edges are seared and both sides of the steak have formed a nice crust, we're going to put the steak in the oven and let it sit there for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes have passed, we're just going to take the steak out of the oven, turn it over, and put it back for another 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, we'll take the steak out of the oven and remove it from the skillet. Now we're going to put it onto our cutting board and let it rest for about 10 minutes. This will allow the juices to redistribute throughout the meat, resulting in a juicy and tender steak. Now it's time to serve your steak. Feel free to serve it as it is in one whole piece, or feel free to slice it beforehand. Be sure to slice it against the grain so it becomes more tender. Getting a good cross-section here, you can see that our steak is cooked perfectly. It has a beautiful crust on the outside while still having a hot pink center. And there you have it, guys, a perfectly cooked, pan-seared, dry-aged ribeye steak. Give it a try and let us know how it turns out in the comments below. I mentioned before that we age this steak for only a couple of days, but the flavor of the beef is definitely noticeably stronger. Coming up, we're planning to try this method and age a steak for maybe a week or even 2, and we'll be sure to share and let you guys know how it turns out. For now though, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of I Wanna Eat, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. We're a new YouTube channel, so it really helps us out, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.